In our pricing video, we used the Hood Time Rate Calculator to show you how to determine your minimum viable rate. But knowing your rate is just the beginning. A major part of running an efficient and profitable operation is staying organized throughout your entire workflow. Many welding businesses fail not because they can't weld, but because they can't manage the business side. They have poor documentation, lose project details, and let jobs slip through the cracks. This video will be an overview of how you can use the Hood Time app to manage your business. Hi, I'm Jess with Hood Time, a business management app for welding and fabrication companies. We first built it as a tool to help keep our welding company organized, and now we're making it available for you to do the same. This app is not an all-in-one solution, and we don't try to be. There's no invoicing or accounting built in. Though an all-in-one solution might seem convenient, it's often better for small businesses to keep their project management separate from invoicing and accounting. If you're not experienced with accounting software, mixing these functions can create some expensive complications that your accountant or bookkeeper will need to untangle, costing you a lot of extra money. In the future, we plan on integration with some of the major accounting platforms for our higher tier plans. The core features of the app are the assessment, price builder, and work order sections. Combined with a customizable status tracking system, you can track each stage of the pre-job data collection and project workflow. Let's say a customer calls you up with a potential job. You'll need to do an assessment to determine all of the job details that must be accounted for. After you assess the job, the price builder will help you calculate the cost of the job based on all of the details you captured in the assessment. Finally, you'll create a work order for the job so you and your team can stay on track throughout the project. Let's take a closer look at how to use these key features of the Hood Time app. When we log into Hood Time, we start at the dashboard. You can see summary cards at the top, showing assessments, price builders, and work orders, plus recent activity and some upcoming deadlines. Every job starts with an assessment. We can click on the card, or on the menu to the left, to get to the list of our assessments. This is where you capture the details of potential projects and begin building your documentation. Here's the form, but before we get into all the fields, first, let's talk about the status field. This is where Hood Time becomes extremely powerful. You can customize these statuses to match your actual workflow. Let me show you where we can do that real quick. We'll go to Custom Lists, Assessment Statuses. Here we have some default statuses: New, Collect Info, On Hold, Build Price, Awaiting Approval, Approved, Declined. You can change them, you can reorder them, and you can change the background color to suit your needs. When creating statuses, it's helpful to make the status an actionable item for the next step, rather than describing what's been completed. For example, if we want to add a status for going to a job site, we should make it Visit Site for something that we need to do, instead of Visited Site after we've already done it. If you use Visited Site in the past tense, then the next step is unclear. Let's add a couple more statuses here and reorder them. We'll click Add New Status, type it in, change the color, and move it higher in our list. Let's also add Get Materials, change the color, and move it higher. The key is making statuses that actually help you and your team track progress and know what needs to happen next. Note that you cannot delete statuses that are already used in other documents, but you can edit them, and the changes will be reflected in all of the documents that have that status currently. Another thing you can do with the assessment statuses is set them up as a sort of sales funnel, but that's a topic for another video. The same concept goes for work orders, as you can see here. Another tip is to use color to group similar statuses together. Maybe you have different reasons for using a similar status. For example, we may want to elaborate on why a job is on hold. So what we can do is edit on hold to say instead, On Hold, Awaiting Materials, and we'll add another status that says, On Hold, Awaiting Deposit. Let's make these colors match. I'll grab the hex code of this one Paste it here. And now they're the same. And let's group them together in our list. Before we go back to the assessment section, we have one more customizable category: job types. Here you can categorize your projects for better organization. For example, you might segment your work based on location or production type. In our list here, we have a few in-house options versus working in the field. Or maybe you do custom one-off items versus production runs of specific parts, or whatever suits your needs. Now let's go back to assessments. From the list view, we can either create a new assessment using this button up here, or on the left, add new assessment, or we can view an existing one. For this demonstration, we'll use an assessment that I filled out in advance. When we click on a row, it'll bring us to the details of that assessment. For this demo, we'll go to the edit mode to see what the assessment form looks like. Let's dive into this assessment from Jimmy's Fine Construction. Jimmy is a contractor who's repairing a deck for a homeowner, and he needs us to build and install new railings. Please note that this is just sample data for a pretend job and is in no way technical advice. At the top, we have our assessment number. This is assessment number 1. This number auto-generates and will increment up by 1 from the previous highest number. The date will autofill to the current date when you create the assessment. Next, we have the assessment title. Be sure to use something descriptive here so you remember what it means later. And our status. This one's currently new, but we could change it as we move through the custom workflow, and you can see the new statuses that we've created here. Our customer is Jimmy's Fine Construction. You can select a pre-existing customer from the drop-down list, or you can create a new one using this form here. Below that is our job description. We can make this box bigger to see everything we've written in. We're going to fabricate and install new handrails for the deck stairs, both sides. We've got some attached photos and drawings. We're going to need to tie into the existing guardrails on site, and we plan on fabricating in-house and installing them at the home. On the right, we have our job type. You can see our custom list here, and for this job, we've selected multi-location because we're doing a mixture of in-house fabrication and on-site installation. Below that is the location of the job, 742 Evergreen Terrace, and if you know who lives there, let me know in the comments. Below that, we have a few dates. The date the proposal is due to Jimmy, and we've put in a potential start date and completion date for this job. Our completion date is August 22nd. Jimmy says that's our drop-dead date because the homeowner is having a party that weekend. The next section is our job details section. These fields are all optional, but will prompt you to think about every aspect of the job that may impact the cost and the time it takes to complete. At the top, you can see we've indicated that this will need an installation, and we've put in some dates here for the potential install. We could probably do this work in one day, but it's good to have a window. We've also indicated that we need Firewatch for this job in order to be OSHA and NFPA compliant. Our quantity is 2 because we need a handrail for each side of the stairs, and we've written in some staff here who are going to help on this job. Samantha's our current apprentice, and Mike's going to be our Firewatch. The next bunch of fields allow us to put in a lot of other details about the job. We can write in the parent metal, the filler metal, the welding process we're planning on using, anything about our consumables, the welding codes we might need to follow, any material preparation, pre-treatment, post-treatment, any unique fixturing that might be needed, any finishing that we might need to do as well. For these handrails, we're going to paint them neon pink, and we need to paint the tie-ins on site after we weld them. There's a field here to indicate any other fabrication besides welding we might need to do, like bending the rails to make the returns, any rentals we might need, and any subcontractors we might be working with. Next up are our site details. We have a note here about our site access. Our truck can get to the backyard through the gate, and we've got the code written in there. We also have some notes on our permits. The building permits are going to be covered under Jimmy's construction permit, but we need the county hot work permit, and we're going to use an internal hot work permit program. Now, sometimes the term hot work permit can be confusing. The county hot work permit here is different from an internal permit system. The internal permit system, that's our company following NFPA 51B safety protocols to make sure we have proper Firewatch and precautions in place. but the county also requires a government or municipality permit to conduct hot work operations in their jurisdiction. These are two different things, one for safety compliance and one for the legal permission to operate. We also have some environmental considerations written in here. This is a beach house with lots of dry grass nearby, and it's near wetlands, so we want to ensure no spills or leaks while we're on site. Now let's move on to the logistics section. There's a lot to consider regarding material handling for a job, and these fields will help you think of every aspect, from the materials themselves to how we're getting them from the supplier to the shop and then on to the customer. We have our materials written in here, as well as our material purchasing plan. We're going to purchase the materials directly, and Jimmy's going to give us 50% upfront. We have fields here to write about the material handling, the material delivery, the product delivery, and any material disposal we need to be concerned about. Our last sections are a miscellaneous section and the attachments. We've written here that we estimate a total of 8 hours will be needed for this job, and we've got our payment terms with Jimmy written here. There's space here to write some additional notes, and if the proposal gets declined, we can put the reason here, so we have it for our records for the future. At the bottom, we have our attachment section, where we can see a few files already attached, and we can add more if needed. That will bring us back to our list view. While we only have one assessment in the list, there are 3 sort modes. The first is the default sort, indicated by the lighter gray arrow, and then there is an ascending and descending sort, indicated by the darker arrows. All you need to do is click to cycle through them. Once you've assessed the job, you need to price it out with the price builder. Let's head over there now. You can create a new one using this button, or Add New Price Builder. But for this demo, we'll use the pre-filled one. Remember, this is not a customer-facing estimate. This is your internal worksheet to determine the job cost. Some of the information in here you may not want to show the customer, or you might display it differently on their estimate or invoice. Maybe you realize the job will cost less than what you can actually charge. Either way, having your pricing methodology saved and separate from customer-facing documents proves valuable for record keeping and pricing similar jobs later. Here's the price builder that we've created for Jimmy. Notice the assessment side panel. You can use this for reference while building your pricing. You can use a price builder without an assessment, but if you do have one, the panel will become available when you select it from the drop-down here. The title autofills from the selected assessment, but can be edited. In the Items and Materials sections, we have our materials written in. We've got our steel pipe, 4 sticks at $120 each, with a 20% markup for $576 total. We're also going to need our neon pink paint. 1 case at $75 with a 50% markup gets us to $112.50. You can add either pre-saved or custom line items by clicking here. For custom items, just type your data into the field and it saves as is. To select pre-saved materials, you can either use the drop-down, or you can add a new item by clicking this button and entering the info into the form. For the markup percentages, a default value can be set up in your settings, located at the top right. But saved items can have their own markup, and you can also override the markup right at the line level. We don't need this additional row, so I'm going to delete it. In our labor section, again, we can use pre-saved values or enter custom line items. We've got our standard hourly rate in here, 8 hours for a total of $1,400. And we've got our helper here, 4 hours for our fire watch for $240 total. Something to note about the helper labor rates is that this rate here is not what the helper's being paid. This is how much it costs to add extra manpower for this job. Let's say the helper gets $30 per hour in wages. We still need to collect extra for things like workers' comp and the employer's portion of wage taxes. That's beyond the scope of this video, but it's something that needs to be kept in mind because both employees and customers can get confused when they see this rate and wonder why it's higher than the expected hourly wage for that employee. Like the rate calculator, as we make changes here, everything calculates in real time. Total material costs, labor hours, and profit margins are shown here at the bottom. Now that we've seen what a completed price builder looks like, let me show you where you can save frequently used items to use them in future price builders. Here's a list of all your items, and if we click to add a new one, we're brought to the form to do so. This checkbox at the bottom can be used to toggle items on and off in the item drop-down field of the price builder. Over here is where our labor rates that we saw in the price builder are stored. At the top is our minimum viable rate, which is coming from the rate calculator for reference, but you can set your rates to anything you want. You can also set rates for additional helpers that aren't already covered by your standard rate. Maybe you want to use this for a subcontractor or an inspector. It's highly flexible. Once a job is approved, you can copy the details of an assessment to a work order by clicking here in the Details view. That'll bring over all of your data except for the attachments. Here's the work order copied from assessment number 1, and a note will be added to the job description to indicate that. While the assessment and work order forms are almost identical, you may want to update or change some details in the work order, and you can still preserve the original assessment. There may also be information in the assessment that's not needed by operations crew, so you could remove it now. Once the work order is created, in the Work Order Details view, there's a daily log feature. This allows you to track daily progress, hours worked, materials used, and any issues or notes from the field. It's perfect for maintaining detailed project records and tracking time. Only one log is allowed per day, but they can be updated as needed to add or change information. We can add a new log by clicking here, or we can scroll down to the bottom of the work order section and add a log down here. It defaults to the current date, and we can type in a description. We'll click Save, and now we can see the log we created and a running total of the number of hours we've spent on this job. Over here is where we can see our list of customers. When we select a customer from the list, we're brought to the Details view, where we can see information about that customer and the documents we've created for that customer. This is an easy way to find all the documents associated with a specific customer, and you can jump to that document just by clicking on it in the list. If we return to the dashboard, we'll see our additional work order as well as the daily log we just created. The process is easy. Use the assessment to capture potential job details, the price builder to calculate the cost, and the work order to manage execution. In upcoming videos, we'll dive deeper into each feature and go over some advanced techniques. If you haven't watched our pricing video yet, I highly encourage you to do so before you price your next job. HoodTime is currently in the startup stage with early adopter pricing. Start your free trial today at hoodtimeapp.com. Like and subscribe because you'll want to stay up to date. See you in the next one.